Today, in total, the vaccine requirements in my plan will affect about 100 million Americans, 2/3 of all workers. My message to unvaccinated Americans is this: what more is there to wait for? What more do you need to see? We've made vaccinations free, safe, and convenient. The vaccine has FDA approval. Over 200 million Americans have gotten at least one shot. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
You know that when President Biden ordered vaccine mandates for millions of Americans, Congress, the very people who wrote the laws, didn't have to follow them. Neither did federal judges. The New York Times reported it. The White House confirmed it. Today, we're investigating who was really exempt from Biden's vaccine mandate and why the truth never made the headlines. On September 9th, 2021, President Joe Biden stood before the nation and issued an executive order that shook the American workforce. Companies with more than 100 employees were told to ensure workers were vaccinated or tested weekly or face fines up to $14,000 per violation. Biden's tone was stern, frustrated even, as he looked directly into the camera and said, "We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost all of us." According to the Biden administration, this order could affect 100 million people, or roughly 2/3 of America's workforce. But just one day later, on September 10th, 2021, the New York Times quietly revealed something few Americans heard on the evening news. According to White House officials, the mandate did not apply to members of Congress or to federal court employees. That's right. The same people who make and interpret the laws were not required to follow this one. It wasn't an oversight, it was by design. The separation of powers under the Constitution meant the executive branch could only enforce mandates on its own workforce, not the legislative or judicial branches. In fact, months earlier, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi made that position crystal clear. At an April 2021 press conference, she said, "We cannot require someone to be vaccinated. That's just not what we can do. It's a matter of privacy."
Cannot require someone to be vaccinated. That's just not what we can do. It is a matter of privacy to know who is or who isn't. I can't go to the Capitol physician and say, "Give me the names of people who aren't vaccinated so I can go encourage them to, or make it known to others to encourage them to be vaccinated." So we can't do that.
So while millions of Americans face job loss or financial penalties, Pelosi admitted that within Congress, vaccination would remain voluntary, a matter of privacy. Meanwhile, Biden's orders targeted the private sector and healthcare workers. Employees in facilities receiving Medicare or Medicaid reimbursements were told they must get vaccinated to keep their jobs. Hospitals complied. Corporations enforced it. Millions of Americans were forced to choose between compliance or unemployment. Independent analysts and whistleblowers began to ask who else was exempt. According to multiple sources online, including commentary from Dr. Jane Ruby and viral posts on X.com, thousands of individuals in power and high-level corporate employees were allegedly spared. According to these sources, people exempt from getting the COVID-19 death shot bioweapon included Congress, congressional staff, Senate House of Representatives, 6,000 White House staff, 2,500 Pfizer staff, 120,000 Johnson & Johnson staff, 1,500 Moderna staff, 15,000 CDC staff, Chinese students, homeless people, and the millions of illegal immigrants crossing America's border. You see, there's one rule for the powerful, another for everyone else. Then in January 2022, the Supreme Court blocked the OSHA mandate for large private employers, ruling that the administration had overstepped its authority. The justices stated that workplace safety agencies could not impose sweeping health mandates across the entire economy. In short, Biden's rule was unconstitutional. The executive branch simply didn't have the power to force private citizens to comply. Adding to the inconsistency, Axios reported that 1/3 of illegal immigrants detained by ICE refused the COVID-19 vaccine with no consequence. At the same time, American citizens face threats of job loss or public shaming for doing the same. By mid-2021, ICE detainees had seen over 20,000 COVID cases and 9 deaths, yet vaccination remained voluntary for these illegal immigrants.
It's a requirement for people at a business with more than 100 people. It is not a requirement for migrants at the southern border. Why?
That's correct.
So, what do we have here? An executive order that applied to millions of Americans, a Congress and federal court system that were exempt, and a Supreme Court that ultimately said President Biden went too far. The irony is hard to miss. Those who held the power to enforce compliance were never bound by it themselves. So now the question becomes, was it really about public health or about control? The pandemic exposed not only cracks in our healthcare system, but also the double standards of those in charge. And when rules only apply to some of us, that's not public safety, that's selective power. You've made it this far, you're not chasing headlines. You're after the truth they don't want you to see. Hit that subscribe button because next time we're digging even deeper. And remember, truth has fangs.